as we continue in personal finance, investing, and estate planning. And we're going to take a look at what we call retirement investing. We look at the Mr. Clem personal financial plan, where we did a zero plan budget. We then set up an emergency fund. It took us a couple of months to put that money aside to get a $1,000 emergency fund. We then started attacking our bad debt, kind of that debt snowball idea, paying extra payments along with your regular payments on the credit cards. Pick off the weakest credit card first, pay money on possibly a second credit card, then pay off what we call the other bad debt, which is a car loan. We then look at our next three options. One was retirement investing. So let's talk about those ideas. You've probably heard some of these terms. Back in the payroll unit, we talked about tax deferred, taking money out of your paycheck before your paycheck is taxed, and then using that money to invest, whether it's invest in company stock, whether it's used to invest in a mutual fund, or whether it's in bonds or some other vehicle. When we look at these two, we're going to split them up between whether they're a defined benefit plan or whether they are a defined contribution plan. Your defined contribution plan, these are voluntary. These are you, the employee, making the choice to invest in a 401k, a 403b, some kind of a profit-sharing plan, a stock bonus plan. But you're the one who dictates whether you're going to put that money away and at what percent you're going to put it away. Now, the company may encourage you to invest by matching a portion of your investment. Maybe your company says for every 1% of your salary you invest, we'll match 1% up to the first 3 or 4%. So in theory, you put away 3%, your company will match that dollar for dollar and also give you another 3% in this retirement plan. Kind of tough not to take that. It's not exactly free money, but it's not that far off from free money. So when you're looking at that, look and see what the company matches and see if you can afford to put at least that much in. You have something else here called a defined benefit plan, and these are done by your company and not the individual. So you receive the benefit from working at that company or that government agency with some specific requirements. It's more like a pension idea. If you put 30 years in the factory or as a pilot or as a mechanic at the airline or as a teacher or a government employee or in the military, they have certain requirements to say if you put a certain amount of time in, we will now pay you X amount of dollars until you die. That's not anything you have done or contributed to. That is just a benefit of that job. So defined benefit as compared to defined contribution plans. When we talk about a pension plan, again, the most widely known one is Social Security. You pay a certain amount into Social Security. You have to wait until your age at least 62 to draw early retirement, 65, 67, all the way up to 70. But in theory, it's a promise to be paid until you die. Well, there are private pension plans. These are employer-sponsored programs, but again, defined benefit plans. The employer is going to set money aside on your behalf, and once you've meeting whatever their requirement is, putting in 20 years, putting in 30 years, usually it's a time frame standpoint, then when you retire, you're able to get that pension. Teaching has a pension. The old rules were often called the rule of 90. So you take your age plus the number of years you've been teaching and you add them together. And if it gets to the total of 90 and you retire, you would get what's called your full pension. If you retired early, you would get something less than a pension. We have public pension plans like we talked about, Social Security and military, where they're going to pay you a certain portion. I hesitate to put a number to it. It's not like it's 100%. So if Clem was making $70,000 as a teacher, my pension isn't going to pay me $70,000 a year. It's probably going to pay me something less than that, something in the maybe 66%, 0.75%. And everyone's different, so I I hesitate to put a number towards it, but it's not like you're making your exact full salary you are when you retire. Some are maybe paying a little bit better than others. That money in a pension plan is pooled and then invested and able to be drawn out when you retire. You can usually have two options when you look at a pension plan. You can either have that money paid to you over just your lifetime, or you could have it paid to you over your and your spouse's lifetime. And if you have it paid over you and your spouse's lifetime, you're probably going to receive a little bit less in that monthly payment because, for argument's sake, let's say Mr. Clem retires with his, teaching pension. And again, I'm just going to make the numbers up. If I say, just pay me over my lifetime, and I'm a guy, and my life expectancy is, 78, where Mrs. Clem is a gal, her life expectancy is, say, 82, statistically. If they have to pay me, they're planning on paying me till age 78. Now, if I live longer than that, they're still stuck paying me. If I die shorter than that, if I choose just myself, well, they stop having to pay me. If I choose, well, no, pay me my pension over my lifetime and Mrs. Clem's lifetime, they'll say, okay, fine, we're going to pay you a little bit less because we're on the hook for as long as you, Mr. Clem, lives. But also, if Mr. Clem dies, then they're still going to keep paying Mrs. Clem my portion. Next up, probably one of the most popular retirement investing ideas is something called a 401k. The 401k is actually the tax law that allows this money to be taken out of your paycheck before your paycheck is taxed. It is an employer-sponsored retirement savings plan offered by some companies. Companies are not required to offer this to you, but a lot of them do because pension plans are very expensive. And as an enticement or something to get you to come work for them, they're going to need to pay you benefits. Some of those benefits are vacation days. Some of those benefits are, paid time off, sick leave, whatever. But 401k is another one of those benefits. It is set up and used by for-profit companies. So back when I was working at Prudential Life Insurance, they offered a 401k. I chose how much I wanted taken out of my paycheck, 10%. They go ahead and deduct it before my paycheck is taxed. That's called tax deferred. And then that money is then invested more often than not in a mutual fund. And that mutual fund follows a stated objective, like prior videos we've covered. Sometimes the employer will match a certain portion of that contribution. The company is going to give you a handful of choices. At Prudential, maybe I had Vanguard and Franklin and Templeton and, mutual fund company number 3. And then each of those companies offered maybe 7, 8, 9, 10 different actual mutual funds. And so I had a choice, but I could pick mutual fund company A, B, or C. And then inside of each of those companies, I could pick a couple different mutual funds. I made the choice as to what percent of that would go in there. And then from there, that, like I said, that money is taken out before your paycheck is tax deferred. And when you're given your couple of choices, you make that choice, and that's where your money is going to be invested in. Some of the rules with 401ks. You need to leave the money in there until age 59 and a half. If you leave the money in there till age 59 and a half, then when you start drawing it out, there is no penalty. If you take it out before 59 and a half, there's a 10% penalty on the total value of the investment. Because you didn't pay income tax on that money, you're going to have to pay regular income tax, and you're going to have to pay tax on any capital gains. So if Mr. Clem, worked at Prudential and I put in, $20,000 of my own money out of my paycheck before my paycheck was taxed and put it into a mutual fund and in a 401k plan. And then I left Prudential and said, well, I want that money. I need that money back. The government's going to say, well, you're not 59 and a half there, Mr. Clem. We're going to charge you 10% penalty on the value of that investment. Let's say that investment grew to $50,000. So I'm going to have to pay a $5,000 penalty. I'm going to have to pay regular income tax at about 30% on the $20,000 that I put in, and then I'm going to have to pay capital gains tax anywhere from 10 to 15%, maybe 20% on the $30,000 in profit in that example. So you really lose almost a third of your value if you cash out your 401k plan before age 59 and a half. If you wait till at least age 59 and a half, no more penalty. And then you'll have to pay taxes as you draw that out. So the government's going to get their money in one way, shape, or form. But the idea is it's a tax deferred. It's a benefit to you now, but there are rules on how far and how long you got to leave that money in. Your next one is something called a 403B. And a 403B is very similar to a 401k. 403B is for employers that are nonprofits, so schools, the Red Cross, colleges, I'm sure there's other nonprofit businesses out there. Everything else is still the same. The money is still taken out of your paycheck before your paycheck is taxed. You still have your age 59 and a half age requirement before you're able to take that money out. If you take it out earlier than that, you got to pay the 10% penalty, you got to pay tax on the regular income, and you have to pay tax on any earnings. So there's a carrot, there's a enticement to have you leave that money in there till age 59 and a half, and there's penalty if you don't. We'll continue with some other retirement investing options in our next video.